Hi, this is Adele from Macalicious Macarons, and today I'm going to teach you how to use your Make Your Own Macaron kit. In your box, you'll be receiving 3 packets containing the dry ingredients that you need to make your macarons. 1, 2, and 3. You'll also be receiving templates to trace your macarons on, super detailed instructions so you know exactly what to do, and 2 pastry bags. One with a tip to pipe your macarons with, and one without for your buttercream. In order to use your Make Your Own Macaron kit, you're going to need some things from your own kitchen. To start with, you're going to need 2 extra large egg whites separated, or 1/3 cup egg whites, a fine mesh sieve to sift your dry ingredients into, a silicone spatula to mix with, 2 hard aluminum trays to pipe your macarons on, along with 2 pieces of parchment paper or silicone mats, 1 stick of butter or margarine to make your buttercream with. You're also going to be needing an electric stand mixer or an electric hand mixer with a whipping attachment in order to beat your egg whites into meringue. First thing we're going to do is that we're going to separate 2 egg whites from the yolk.
It's very important that no outside substance goes into your egg whites. So I like to crack my egg whites in 2 separate bowls and then put them together at the end to make sure that no yolk goes inside the egg white, or else your eggs won't whip up properly. I also like to measure my egg whites to make sure I have a full 1/3 cup, since each egg has a different volume of liquid in it. Here I had to crack an extra egg white and add it in order to make 1/3 cup and get the proper measurements for my macarons. Now we need to whip up our meringue. You could start by adding your egg whites to your bowl and starting your mixer on medium-low. Once you see them starting to foam, slowly add packet 1, your granulated sugar, to the bowl. Here is also where you can add a drop of gel food coloring. It's very important that you use gel because liquid food coloring can ruin your egg whites. If you're using a stand mixer, now's the time to start prepping the other parts of your macarons.
While your egg whites are beating, let's prepare our dry ingredients. We're going to open the contents from packet 2. I have a tray prepared under my fine mesh sieve so that I can sift my ingredients into. You can also use a bowl or a dish or whatever you have on hand. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to dump the contents of packet 2. Make sure you get everything out because every ounce counts. And I'm going to just sift it into my tray. There's going to be a few clumps like this. I'm going to take my hand and just work the clumps through the strainer to make sure we get everything out. Every strainer has different size holes in it. So some of you might have extra almond flour or extra sugar in your strainer that's not straining out. If that's the case, if it's a lot, then I want you to just use it, put it in here, and mix it up with the fork or with your hand or with your spatula, something like that. If you don't have anything extra, that's fine too. And if you just have a teaspoon or so extra, you could just throw that out, that's fine. That's why we strain it, to make sure there's nothing too big that's going into your almond flour, and also to make sure to get the finest consistency of your sugar and almond flour so that there's no clumps in our macarons. So I'm just going to give this a nice mixing because I want to make sure the dry ingredients are mixed really well before we put it into our meringue. Now we're going to prepare our baking sheets. Take the 2 template sheets that you got in your box and make sure to unbend it by the crease. Open it up, make sure It's nice and flat because you're going to be piping on it, and you need it to lay flat on your sheet, just like this. Take your piece of parchment paper or your silicone mat and lay it flat on top of your templates. So it should look like this. After you're done piping your first tray, you're going to slide the template sheets out from under and prepare your next tray. Like that. Make sure you take the template sheets out from under the parchment paper before you put your trays in the oven. Now we're going to prepare our pastry bag with our tip for our macaron batter. I like to put it in a cup or a container, just like this, and fold the sides over. This way, you have something holding the bag while you pour the batter into, instead of holding it in your hand and the batter getting everywhere.
Meanwhile, you should have been gradually raising the speed of the mixture until your egg whites have reached stiff peaks. Once they're stiff, we can begin folding.
This is what your eggs are going to look like once they reach stiff peaks. Call this meringue. It's very stiff. Some people like to test to see if their stiff peaks are ready by turning their bowl upside down. When you see that nothing's falling out, you know that they're ready. Now we're going to start the most important part of making your French macarons. We call this macaronage. That is when you mix the dry ingredients into your meringue. This is what we're going to do. We're going to put the dry ingredients 1/3 at a time. It doesn't have to be exact. You don't have to measure it, but just eyeball it. 3 increments. I'm also going to add my food coloring now because I forgot before. So you could either add it now or you can add it when you are whipping up your egg whites. I added 2 drops of glue. I'm going to take my silicone spatula, I'm going to hold my bowl, and I'm going to wrap around and I'm going to fold my ingredients in. I'm not going to mix it. You're going to fold. You're going to keep folding just until it seems like your dry ingredients have started to incorporate into your meringue. Now, I'm going to add the second third of my dry ingredients in.
I sped the video up a bit here, but I am continuing to fold. This is the most important part in making your macarons because if you overfold it, your macarons could come out with protruding feet, soft shells, or even cracked. If you underfold it, then the batter might be too thick and won't flatten out properly. Keep in mind that it's better to underfold it than to overfold it, so use a light hand. You can see here that I just keep going around and in with my batter, around and in, until I reach a consistency that I want. Make sure you get the bottom of the bowl and there's no dry ingredients stuck there. Everything gets mixed.
Now this is what ribbon-like consistency is. If you didn't see that, one more time. This is ribbon-like when it falls off the spatula in a nice ribbon. And after a few seconds, it folds into itself. Now we're going to transfer our batter into the pastry bag that we prepared before. I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl and get everything into our pastry bag. Now's the fun part. We get to pipe our macarons. So we're going to use a stencil as a guide to how big we want them. And you're going to take your pastry bag, you're going to hold it with 2 hands, you're going to squeeze down and flick your wrist just like that. Squeeze and flick, squeeze and flick, squeeze and flick. Now what happens if you don't flick your wrist and you just go up is you get a little tip like that, which is not a big deal. But in order to get the nicest macarons, you want to just flick your wrist. and try to get them all the same size. You want to go as close, in order to get the best method of piping your macarons is you want to go close to the tray, squeeze, and flick. You don't want to go from too far up or else that happens. And we don't want that. You don't want to go around in circles or else you get a little swirl. The easiest way is the best way. You just push down and flick. Push down and flick. The tip is round. So because we have the round tip, it gives us the round macarons. So we're just going to push down and flick, push down and flick. Now you can make your macarons any size you want. If you want to make them mini, you can make them mini. If you want to make them bigger, you can make them bigger. That's why everyone's going to come out with a different quantity of macarons. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully remove the template from under my parchment paper. And I'm going to take my tray, can you see my hand? And I'm going to hit the bottom. Keep hitting the bottom. And you see all these little air bubbles release from your macarons when you do that. And it makes the tops flat. So you're just going to keep hitting the bottom carefully so that your parchment paper doesn't move. And now we're going to let these sit in a room temperature environment for around 20 minutes to an hour until a hard shell forms on top. After you pipe your tray, here's your chance to sprinkle whatever you want on top of your macarons. I'm going to sprinkle chocolate sprinkles because I'm making chocolate macarons.
It's important to sprinkle the macarons while they're still wet, so do it before you leave them to rest. Then after, they can rest.
While we wait for our macarons to dry, we're going to make the buttercream. What we're going to do is put our 1 stick of margarine into the mixer, lift it, and start beating it.
Once your butter is beat smooth, you can add the contents of packet 3 and the ingredients of your choice to flavor your buttercream. Here, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder to make my macarons chocolate flavor. Sometimes I also love to add some ground up instant coffee with the chocolate to make it mocha. You can really make it yours and add your favorite flavor like lotus cream, jelly, vanilla, crushed up cereal, Oreos, or whatever flavor you love. It's important that you start your mixer on low so that the sugar doesn't make a mess and fly everywhere, and then once your dry ingredients are combined with the butter or margarine, you can gradually higher the machine and go faster.
You can also stop the machine, lower your bowl, and scrape down the sides in order to make sure your margarine mixes with your other ingredients.
Let it whip on high until your ingredients are all combined and your buttercream looks like it's light and fluffy.
Now, we're going to take our second pastry bag, the one with no tip, and we're going to put it in the cup the same way we did to the first one. Like that. We'll scrape down our buttercream for our bowl and give it one last little mixing with our hands to just make sure everything is incorporated perfectly, just like that. Now we're going to empty the contents of the bowl into our pastry bag. This is what we're going to use to stuff our macarons with.
It's been around 30 minutes and I decided to come check on my macarons to see if they're ready for the oven. I see that they're not sticking to my finger and the batter has formed a complete shell on top, and I know that they're ready. I put my first tray in an oven set at 315 degrees. I set a timer for 6 minutes, then after 6 minutes, I come check on them and I rotate it and set another timer for 5 minutes until they're ready. Each oven is different, so each person's baking time is going to vary by a few minutes. Don't stress if the timing isn't exact because every oven runs a little hotter or colder than the next. My macarons have finished baking and are ready to come out of the oven. I know this because they lift off the parchment easily and the feet don't wiggle. You know your macs came out great if they have great looking feet like these. I wait 15 minutes and then I proceed to match my macarons. Each one comes out slightly different size, so you have to sit there matching it. While I'm matching them, I'm also opening them so that I could stuff them later. I'm cracking one open here to show you that they came out really perfect. There's no hollows inside. This is what you want your macaron to look like. They're full and beautiful and delicious. This just makes me so happy to see, and even now, after 8 years, I love seeing perfect macs like that. Now it's time to fill. I cut a small hole at the tip of my pastry bag with my buttercream and put a generous amount of filling in each macaron. Then you want to start closing them and, of course, eat a few now. Put them in the fridge overnight in a tray sealed tightly. They taste even better once you refrigerate them overnight. Now, don't forget to do your little happy dance because congratulations, you just made the hardest cookie in the world and they came out awesome. Enjoy!